Welcome to our new series. We're going to be kicking off this week all about executive functioning. So in today's blog, I'm just going to be kind of talking basically a little bit about what executive functioning is. And then over the next 7 weeks, I'm going to break down executive functioning into all of its specific parts. I know you hear the term executive functioning and you're like, what the heck is that? Okay. So the executive functioning is a part of your brain that's super critical to helping you make good choices. Okay. It helps you choose the correct behavior before you do it. It helps you think before you act, so to speak. I liken it to basically the boss of your brain. And for people with ADHD, most of them, a vast majority, like 90% of them, have deficits in executive functioning. Executive functioning covers 7 specific areas of your brain. So when we look at executive functioning, we're looking at the areas of self-control, self-monitoring, flexible thinking, organization, time management, planning and prioritizing, and one more. The 7th one is, how am I doing? See? I space shotted on that one. Oh, working memory. Yep, that was perfect. That would be the one that I forget, right? Working memory. I also have ADHD. So working memory is actually your short-term memory, and it allows you to kind of remember things on the fly. And it's funny because I do know all about executive functioning, but man, pulling those terms up can really be a challenge sometimes. There's 7 of them. That's a lot of work on my brain. And most people with ADHD have issues with executive functioning. So we have a lot of difficulty with planning. We have a lot of difficulty with keeping things in our head for a long period of time. We have difficulty adjusting on the fly. We have difficulty remembering where we put things. We have difficulty keeping things organized. And that means within our brain as well as physically. There's so many pieces to this. And so what ends up happening is that it ends up looking sort of like a defiant behavior in kids. But really what you're seeing is their frustration with themselves because they know this stuff. They know they remembered to do their homework. They know they remembered where they put their shoes, but they're so frustrated because they can't keep track of it all. I've used the example that it's sort of like Michael Scott from The Office is the boss in your brain, right? They all get their work done eventually, but they have to come up with some really creative strategies to work around the boss because he's constantly disrupting them, constantly trying to be funny and do different things and take them off of their task, right? And so, they do a great job eventually, and they do get the job done eventually. It just takes them a little bit longer because they have to work through all these different parts and pieces. Another way to look at it is executive functioning sort of as like having multiple junk drawers in your kitchen. You have all these drawers that are you just throw everything in, and there's no rhyme or reason to how they're organized. And so you have to go looking through each one of those drawers to find exactly what you're looking for. And that's sort of what happens also in executive functioning. Your brain doesn't organize the information that you're receiving in a way that is useful for you in the moment. You have to go searching for it. So, for example, when a child is doing math, and let's just say they have a word problem, and the teacher says, Tony has 7 apples and Johnny has 3. How many more does Johnny need to have the same amount as Tony, right? So the kiddo who's trying to figure that out has to do several things here. First of all, he has to keep the number 7 in his brain. And I'm trying to do this right now with what I just said. Keep the number 7 in his brain, keep the number 3 in his brain, and figure out what he's supposed to do with that, right? So how many more does Johnny need to have the same amount as Tony? Well, he has to figure out that that means he has to subtract, right? He has to be able to work that problem in reverse. Or he has to figure out how 3 plus how many equals 7. So he has to figure out a couple of different working problems with that one equation to get to the right answer. That's a massive task for a kiddo with ADHD because it is so nuanced and so vague. So, for example, in that situation, what would help is maybe like a cheat sheet that kiddo can keep next to him, and with all like the odd phrases, more than, less than, what do they mean when you see them in a word problem? A cheat sheet that describes different steps that you need to take when you're starting a word problem. Those kinds of things. So yeah, so we're going to be digging into all the pieces of the junk drawers over the next 7 weeks and learning a lot about how the ADHD brain functions. It's very unique, it's very incredible, but it's very real and very frustrating. So you're going to learn and understand why it is that people with ADHD tend to have a much more difficult time in these areas. So I'm really excited for this series, and I'm really looking forward to getting going. So this is just a start, just basic overview. So stay connected, stay in touch, and while you're at it, you can actually grab my free resource on executive functioning. It'll be a great tool to download and have on hand while we're going through these next several weeks. Alrighty, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.